my name is Carly Stevens. I'm the author of the Tanya and Academy series, and this is English Nerd. In today's edition of 2-Minute Writer, I'm going to talk about the difference between poetry and prose. These are terms that we throw around all the time, but we don't often define. So if you've been thinking, oh gosh, what's the difference and where is that line, then I am here to help you out. So basically, poetry is the easier one, right? Poetry isn't defined by the type of language that's used. Essentially, when we're talking about poetry versus prose, poetry is the one that's going to have those intentional line breaks. Even if they're long lines like this from Homer's Iliad, it doesn't matter how long or short a poem is. If there are those intentional line breaks, then you are looking at poetry. Another way of saying that would be that it's in verse. So this is clearly written in verse. Again, it doesn't really matter how long or short the lines are, how they're organized. If you have lines like this, where there's a time for the line to end, then you have a poem on your hands. Prose, on the other hand, is with just paragraphs. There is no intentional formatting in that same way. And so even a work like The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern, which is written very poetically, is clearly in prose rather than in verse. It's in those paragraph forms. See? What you can run into is a work that's written both in poetry and in prose, so I wanted to show you two quick examples of that. One is from William Shakespeare's Henry IV, Part 1. So in Henry IV, Part 1, we have low-born characters who are speaking in prose, who are speaking in that paragraph form, and normally that does indicate a lower class character in Shakespeare. So if you, for instance, see what the king is saying, then it's suddenly written in verse. So keep an eye on that with Shakespeare. If you're citing Shakespeare, use slashes to indicate where one line ends and the next line begins. Same thing for any poem. If you're writing about it, use a slash to indicate line breaks, but you do not need to do that with prose. Even some modern works like Pride by E.B. Zoboy, and I'm not sure that I'm pronouncing that correctly, can be written in both. So the majority of this is written in prose. I would say this is clearly a novel because it's written in prose, but we do have some poems interspersed into the text as well here and there. So that is essentially the difference. People have argued about some of the finer points of the difference between poetry and prose. Where is that line? Does it have to do more with language or more with those line breaks? But probably if you're studying the difference, if you're thinking about how to quote something in an essay, that is the super basic difference between the two. And so that is what you need to know about the difference between poetry and prose. I know that I've run slightly over 2 minutes. I'm sorry about that, but I had lots of good examples to show you. So like this video if you like it, make sure to subscribe if you have not done so already, and I'll see you later. Bye.